Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Ed Carbajal. Check us out weekly at allaccessmma.com for our video podcast and your MMA stories and news. Ed, UFC pay-per-view weekend. We didn't really talk UFC last week, but the world's going to be talking about it this week, and the
Mm-hmm.
fights this week certainly call for the main billing. Uh, we also have Bellator, so it's going
It's
to
a
be a
nice 1-2 punch of MMA this weekend, Friday and Saturday. Bellator 280, Friday early during the day for us East Coasters, and then I think it's like at noon or something like that. I got to look at the times again, but and then Saturday night, of course, we got our UFC 274 pay-per-view, which is one that that's a pretty hot card right there. Two title fights, a lot of violent men and women on the card.
a chance
um,
for one of your 2022 wishes to come true. Actually, kind of one of both of ours, but yours definitely
yeah,
with Gagey potentially winning the title, which would be cool to see that unfold. But we'll get into that a little later. I suppose let's jump into Bellator and start with that one since it's Friday night and a bit of the appetizer for Saturday's
all right, yeah, I'll bring
main
up
event.
the card from Bellator.com's website. So folks that listen on audio only, we always bring up the cards for the events we're doing picks for on the promotions website. Some good information on some of the websites, but I mean Bellator 280. We were looking at it just before we started recording, and there's a couple of I don't know if you want to start at the beginning, at the top or the bottom of the main card. But you got a good eye with some of the names on the card that weren't that heavy records, but not that noticeable unless you did some research on them.
Yeah, it was just upon doing some research, ran into Gregory Babene. I would say I guess how you pronounce his last name.
From
French fighter,
France.
21-11, and was really shocked to see. When you see a record of 21-11, and I didn't catch his name. Maybe it's somebody I should have, but when you look back at his record, he really not only is it pretty fascinating that he wins like 90% of his fights by submission, but he loses 90% of his fights by submission. Uh, but he's
Tell
been
you,
around.
Hisaki Kato win his knockouts.
There you go. He's also been around since 2004, and at one point had a run where he fought Storm Shlemenko, Andrei Semenov, who any of the old school No Holds Barred fans will certainly remember, and he fought in UFC also. Carl Amasau and Joe Dorkson, Canadian fighter who also was had a little run in the UFC. So weird to see that all in 2008. Extended slightly into 2009, but just fought everybody. He has a fairly, 6-year-old, but one of his last, couple wins was Emilio Sordi, who is the PFL uh, champion,
Mm.
tournament champion last season. So really just a lot of experience and, all of his fights have been outside of the States. So I wonder if there's something there, if he's just a European fighter who does his thing in Europe. But it added a little bit to the card when I see that he's somebody who's been around that long and still grinding away at it. And like I said, he's got some losses on his record, but
But some of the guys he's beat has done some things too.
that's what
So
I mean. He's
that's
beaten some big good names, and
uh,
his losses are to fairly good names, a lot of them. So
yeah. I'm trying to find. I'm wondering if he's an underdog that you know. I'm trying to find odds. I mean, and of course, most of sports books, the big ones anyway, are filled with UFC stuff and hardly any Bellator odds. But I mean,
Tapology, which I don't know how updated it is, shows him as a 150 underdog, plus 150.
yeah,
So
eh,
whereas his opponent Mike Shipman, 14-3, is a 175 slight favorite. So
yeah. So
um,
interesting matchup there. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if more people find out who Bene is after that. I don't know. Did you want to make a pick for him for that fight in
yeah,
particular?
I'm not necessarily going to make a pick for that fight. I just thought it was more interesting, and I think it should make for a good fight. Both guys have
Mhm.
a few wins in Bellator, and uh, It looks like the fans on the Bellator site are picking Shipman
Yeah.
about 2-1. So we'll see how it goes. But just added a little bit of interest into the card. Next fight, Lorenz Larkin, who almost all combat fans will recognize, fighting
Mhm.
Kyle Stewart, who's been around a long time. LFA won the main event at the first United States San Diego Cage Warriors event. So
Mhm.
uh, he gets in here. Kind of a late announced fight. I don't know how long they've known about it, but I think it only became public within the last couple of weeks. Um, you know, I lean Larkin. I think Larkin's just a skilled fighter. I think he's ran into some kind of weird scenarios in a couple of his losses. Uh, but I his last few wins have been impressive, and I think he's developing as a fighter as he's getting older. Maybe not all the excitement that we kind of uh, gotten used to, but he's on a 5-fight win streak now, and I think you know probably with a win here, you start to make an argument for a championship fight. Uh,
Mhm.
if you have 6 consecutive wins over name opponents.
I'm wondering. I should have brought them up before we looked at this because it's not showing anything on here. Well, we're on their website. We can look at it right here. I don't think for middleweights. Let's take a look at their rankings since we're on Bellator's website. Where do we have them? Since you mentioned the title shot, welterweight, middleweight. So Lorenz
So
Larkin's
he's
number
six.
6.
I mean, Vanderford just had one. Eblin's getting one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he's right there. I mean,
Yeah.
there'd be another win over a game opponent, while not a ranked. He's just
Mm-hmm.
coming into Bellator. So, but if Kyle Stewart picks up a win, also, I imagine he probably is on the
Yeah.
border of that,
Yeah.
or jumps into the
Obviously,
group
yeah.
of
If he
hitting
wins, he beats him. He probably gets popped in here. I wouldn't be surprised.
8 to 10 range, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Especially being on the run he's on, because well, Larkin's on 5-fight winning streak. You know, he did win his last fight. He's 2-1 in his last uh, 3, but he
Mm-hmm.
does have a loss to Chris Curtis also in there, Nishan Burrell. So he's lost to a couple name fighters. Yeah, I mean, I think Larkin's going to pick up the win, and 6 wins in a row, like I said, moves him up
Yeah,
that
it's hard
thing.
not.
And
It's hard not to pick him. Yeah.
yeah. I just like I said, he seems like he's on a roll now. I didn't think he beat Korshov, or I was disappointed he beat Korshov maybe more
Mm-hmm.
than I didn't think he did. But other than that, he's pretty much dominated his opponents.
And the next fight on the card is this is the Bellator Paris card, just so folks are aware. So we got a couple of local guys and Davy Gallon or Gallon and Benjamin Brander. I don't know, man. I mean, it looks like these are a little lopsided. These fights on the beginning of the main card here, as far as guys with experience and who they're being put up against. But I mean, matchmaking is probably a little harder, when they travel overseas. So,
Yeah, looks like it's the Bellator debut for Brander. Gallon's fought twice in Bellator. I think it's probably more of a showcase for a French fighter.
mm-hmm.
That's what it kind of looks like to me. But I will have to give the same crap to Bellator, because Tapology has Brander at 13-8. So just just so somebody's wrong on his record. But
Yeah.
again, I don't.
Hey, if we're weighing, some folks are. Wait till we get to the UFC card. I already saw they fixed the odds, but we'll get to that when we talk to the UFC about the UFC pay per view. But this next fight,
Yeah,
last
starts
minute
to warm up.
replacement for it was supposed to be Yoel Romero versus Melvin Manhoff, and Manhoff had withdrew. I guess I believe it was due to injury, and Alex Polizzi is now stepping in to face the guy that Darren Till was openly afraid of when he was in the UFC. I don't know if this is the same Yoel Romero that was in the UFC though. Even this, he had that issue with his eye, and I know he had it fixed, but even this profile picture, you can see that left eye looks a little puffy. So I'm wondering,
Yeah,
I
not
don't
the
know.
best photo of him.
Yeah.
I think that we got the Yoel Romero that was like the last couple fights in towards the end of the UFC run. I mean,
Mm.
at least maybe not the last couple, because now that I look at it, that's his Costa fight was awesome. The Adesanya fight was actually the one that just spoiled it, and then that was his last fight there, which
Yeah,
um,
we don't like to
is
talk about that one.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, sometime Father Time's got to catch up to even the most incredible athletes. He is 45. Um, Manhoff would have actually been older, so that's interesting to see that fall out. I think this is a real challenge for Romero, fighting Pozzoli or Polizzi. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
Um, got wins over Grant Neal, Gustavo Trujillo. Does have a loss to Anglikias, Julius, who made a small name for himself as an alternate in the Grand Prix. But he has a win over Rafael Carvalho. Uh, you know, you got to me. I gotta lean. I gotta lean Romero, but only by name. But I think it might be tough. I think he's gonna have an issue with the younger kid, and I think you're just gonna have to find. You're gonna find out if Polizzi's the real deal in this fight. Um, but you know, I don't know what I don't know. If I was gonna bet money, I'd bet Polizzi because I'm sure. Now let me see what the odds look like. But I feel like Romero's due to squeak something out, and
The thing about him, even if you want to talk about his age and whatever, first couple of rounds, he's still explosive. He's still an explosive monster that can
that's what
probably
I
put
think.
away
Yeah,
most guys away. I mean, early. Then once you get to round 3 or whatever, then it starts to be like, okay, well maybe now that the other person he's fighting can squeak one out.
yeah. They have Tapology again. Don't know how accurate it is currently, but they have Romero as a minus 300 favorite. So as opposed to a 250 underdog for Polizzi. Yeah, I mean, I think Romero's probably just going to land something, hurt him, and I think he's just due to pick up a win. And for Bellator's sake, and signing him might probably be a good thing
Hmm.
to get something out of their investment. But I think it'll be a better fight than the Manhoff fight. I think the Manhoff fight would have been kind of a little bit more of
Yeah,
a sideshow, but maybe not as much as an MMA
yeah, it would have been one of those things where
fight.
you're just waiting for somebody to get dropped.
Pretty much,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
and yeah, I don't need to see Manhoff get put down again. And some of these guys just need to, eventually call it quits here. Speaking of somebody who is older and getting another shot at a title,
hmm.
Czech Congo challenges again for Ryan Bader's title. I was actually at their first fight up in San Jose, ended in a no contest after an eye gouge. Um, you know, I kind of I want to see. I'd love to see Congo win at this point. I'm kind
Hmm.
of just like, if we're just gonna do this, let's just do it. And I'm kind of tired of Bader as well, but I will pick Ryan. I will pick Ryan Bader. I think he'll use his wrestling. I think it's hard not for me not to pick him. He just beat Moldovsky in his last fight, and
Yeah, yeah,
I thought Moldovsky was going to beat him pretty handily, so I was wrong on that. So, and after their first fight was Bader dominating up until the end of the fight. So I got to go with Brian Bader. I think he'll use his wrestling and do what he can do, and that's hold people down, beat them up, and either pick up kind of a later some TKO win or win a decision pretty handily.
yeah. No, I agree. I'm with you on that one. I see Bader picking up a win here too. I mean, he seems to when it comes to wrestling, I just feel like he can. And again, like you said, I mean, with Congo too. This is kind of like the last uh the last chance we'll see for him to probably get a shot at something like this. So,
Honestly, win or lose, it'd be nice to see it be his retirement fight in France.
yeah, yeah.
You
I
know what I
mean,
mean?
yeah, definitely.
So, then that pretty much moves us to the mega UFC pay per view this weekend. Uh, I'm not going to sit here and rant. I was a little bit disappointed to hear more information coming out of Dana White's mouth. It just never ends when it comes to that guy and fighter pay and the delusional
Yeah.
media. Uh, uh, you know, the ESPN guy Ryan Clark,
Hmm.
former NFL player, former member of the NFLPA.
Oh,
sitting
the
there,
union. Yeah.
just sitting there like a total puppet as he's being read propaganda that is just insane, and it's pathetic that you got guys like Ferguson speaking up today, basically calling
Yeah.
Dana White a drug dealer who's not allowing him to do anything without being threatened, and how he's just he's waiting around for insurance and stuff. And honestly, that it's maybe it's me getting older, but that stuff's starting to wear thin, and makes me wonder, at some point I hope they're held to have to do something about that. I know Eric McGracken and all those guys
Yeah.
are constantly on the case on Twitter and stuff, but it's just a shame and it's criminal. And there's a lot of good people at the UFC, but the fact that these fighters don't have insurance is I can't even, as a former business owner, I can't even comprehend how they can get away with that. You
Yeah.
know, I
It's
really can't.
No, I mean that's the thing about the growth. I mean, at some point, so like you said, someone's gonna have to address, especially with Endeavor going public. I mean, you know, it's something that people, the shareholders are going to be, if they didn't know it, if they just bought it to buy it, and then now they're paying attention to the news and they're seeing this come up almost. It's almost like a monthly topic, and especially this year. It's definitely something that's got to be addressed. And then when you have again guys on the main card bringing stuff like this up, it's hard to ignore. And then when his in regards to Tony Ferguson in particular, I mean, like everybody liked the whole Dana White privilege line, and including Dana White, and they laughed at it. But I mean, he's the only one that seems to be taking it seriously. Every interview you've seen from him today, where they try to bring that up as a something to chuckle at, he's like, I mean, as serious as anyone can get about anything. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, I always stay up late to watch these post fight press conferences. This is going to be an interesting one, man, because especially with depending on the outcome of the fight. So we might as well get into the fights here.
Yeah, yeah. Let's turn this positive now because it is an outstanding fight card,
Mhm.
and from start to finish. Even if you just jump down to the prelims, um,
Yeah, it's
Tracy Cortez, Andre Filho, Blagoy Ivanov. I mean,
mhm.
some good names up there. And then the middle prelims there. You got Brandon Royval, uh, Trinaldo, Randy Brown, Chaos
Yeah.
Williams. I mean, it's really some really exciting. Uh, Maybe not the occasional fight that's gonna like determine a division that we get on a prelim,
Mhm.
but although Royval is always gonna be a contender, but
Yeah, and he's
you know
fun to
it.
watch.
But there's a lot of potential excitement in a lot of those fights. Macy Chason, um, former Ultimate Fighter winner, also on
Mhm.
there. So uh,
Yeah.
at
Fun card.
145, which is a rarity. They're two of the four women in that weight class.
Yeah.
The Grand Prix
Yeah.
begins apparently on the prelims, but
Yeah, I mean it's there's no odds for these fights. I mean, again, we were talking about which is a great way to lead into there's no odds for Ivanov
up in
versus DeLima. There's
yeah,
some, but earlier this week, just and I wish I had screen capped it. I know someone tweeted it out. Some what's her Sandy Pence, I think was her Twitter handle, but she tweeted out somebody tweeted out that these odds were flipped yesterday on Tuesday. They actually had Michael Chandler as the underdog and Tony Ferguson as the favorite, and then now they seem to have fallen in line with everyone else's odds on that middle fight leading into the main and co-main event. But before
yeah.
I just wanted to mention that because I had tweeted, I was already making picks for this card because you know how anyone that listens to this podcast, and you of course know that I'm a big Justin Gaethje fan and a fan of Rose Namajunas, especially they're both trained under Trevor Whitman. Um, I think it's been a nice little uh, what's the word I'm looking for? They've been on the same cards together a lot recently, so I like when that happens. I think it's a great combination, and um, so I did picks for those two fights. If anyone that reads the four people that read my newsletter know that I've already submitted my picks for that, so I'm going to reiterate those when we get to those fights. But let's start at the beginning here with the lightweight bout. the OGs gotta love this one. Donald Cerrone versus Joe Lozon.
Yeah, Lozon did win his last fight. Um, hasn't been super active. Only fought 4 times since 2017.
Mm.
UFC 200 weekend, I believe. Actually, might have been the weekend, the year after that. But yeah, and then Cerrone, who has fought everybody. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. Like when he's on a he's on his record don't look pretty right now. There's a lot of red recently.
Yeah.
Um, but when they're to Ferguson, Gagey, McGregor, Pettis, and Morono, um, it's hard to get a judge on what's going on here. I'm gonna go with Joe Lozon.
Yeah.
I think Cerrone is 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 ready to should be ready to call it a career, or at least do I don't want to say go to Bellator and compete against easier competition, because he
Mm.
wouldn't get easy competition if he went over there. But hopefully he's made some good money in those named bouts that I mentioned, and
Mm-hmm.
he's able to retire comfortably wherever the heck in the world he wants to do that. But I do think Lozon. I'm gonna go with like a TKO win, like mid-second, third round. I
Yeah.
think
I
I
mean,
think he'll I think he'll grind him down.
I'm not going to disagree with you. I mean, as much as we all everyone's been is a Cowboy Cerrone fan one way or another, but it's hard to not see the writing on the wall. And I feel like there was something said after his last loss by Dana White where he was just kind of like, I mean, the next one where or Cerrone was like, let me get one more or something like that before you make me do, walk away from this thing if you're going to force me to. And
Uh,
so if I think that, I mean, that might be what happens. Of course, if he pulls off a win, um, oddly enough, they have him as the favorite for this fight, but we, we just went over why that might be a mistake. So check your favorite sports book to make sure.
yeah, I mean, he even though people know Lowe's on Cowboys, the name fighter. So if people in
Hmm.
Vegas are just around town throwing money down on a fighter, they're seeing the name. So
Yeah, yeah.
I don't even really want to pick this fight. Shogun Hua OSP. OSP beat him the first time they fought.
Hmm.
Finished him. Uh, yeah, I want Hua to win. He's one of my all-time favorite
Hmm.
fighters. But I don't I don't know. I have mixed feelings, because in certain situations I do like to watch the older guys fight, but I guess I don't like to watch the older guys fight when I think it could get ugly, and
Yeah.
I I don't know. It just seems like is it I I'm gonna pick Hua. I mean, I have no reason. I'll pick him by knockout just because he's Shogun Hua, and
Yeah.
I should pick him by knockout. But um,
I'll leave that one for you. Then I'm gonna
yeah,
stay away from
yeah.
that
Let's move on
one.
from that. We got you know
Yeah.
yeah.
This is the one that obviously
Uh,
with Ferguson making a lot of news today, and I mean Chandler being the former Bellator champ, coming off of his own. Both guys are technically coming off of losses, but it's man, it's something. It's a fight that one of those dream matchups back when you know it's a champ shit only versus the man that's held the strap multiple times over at Bellator, facing one of the top guys in the UFC again. I mean, I have to as much as I mean Tony Ferguson, he's got the submission prowess, and we know he's if I'm not mistaken, I believe he might be the older fighter here. He's coming off of a few losses, bad ones, and I just think that the overhand right of Michael Chandler, if it finds its mark a few too many times, he could pull off a victory here, or at least damage Ferguson enough to pull off a win. So I'm gonna go Michael Chandler on this one. Ferguson could always sneak in a submission, but I feel like we haven't seen that Tony Ferguson in a little bit since Justin Gaethje beat him. So
yeah, it's interesting that Ferguson's on a 3-fight losing streak. Gagey, Oliveira, Dariush, and Chandler's on a 2-fight losing streak. Oliveira and Gagey.
Mhm.
So it's basically kind of the round robin with these guys' records. But I tend to lean with you. I think that Gaethje fight did change Ferguson. We might find out what the Gaethje fight did to Chandler though this weekend. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point.
you
Yeah.
know. So, but what I know and what I think is going to happen is I think Chandler will beat up Ferguson. Um, Dariush beat him up. Oliveira beat him up.
Mhm.
Now Chandler lost to Gagey and Oliveira, but I don't know if I'd say they were beat up necessarily. They were he lost, but you know he stood in
Mhm.
there with Gagey and they threw down. And if it would have been a 5 round fight, who knows how it would have unfolded.
Yeah,
Oliveira,
but
he had.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Gagey. I'm just
No,
saying that
I'm saying
whereas
he
you know,
walked away a little more damaged than Gaethje did. I know he almost dropped Gaethje at one point too. I actually rewatched that fight a week or
mhm.
two ago, but it's definitely one that's like he's. I mean, if you look at win or lose, a lot of guys that have, even with the exception of Dustin Poirier, Khabib we can't speak for because he retired after he beat Gaethje, but um, Dustin Poirier is the only guy has done well after fighting Justin Gaethje. Something about that fighting that guy seems to leave damage that kind of
Something
yeah
the sledgehammers that he's gonna
yeah
swing about
yeah
800 of them at him. Yeah, no, I mean, and I just think that I think that that took more out of Ferguson, the beating he took, and then followed it up with two more.
hmm
I just think Chandler's gonna hit him, catch him in the chin. Um, and I don't know if he finishes Ferguson, but I do think that although Chandler is he's a finisher. When he hurts you, he
hmm
goes in
yeah
for the kill, and sometimes that's can be for a little bit of a detriment if he gasses himself out. Or,
yeah
but I'm gonna pick Chandler to 3 round fight. I'll pick him by decision out of respect for Ferguson's durability. But I
hmm
do think I think he probably hurts him early, and Ferguson's strictly able to survive. Is kind of how I see it in my head.
yeah. Then the co-main event. I mean, this one here, man. I mean, it's a long time coming. Rematch: Rose Namajunas versus Carla Esparza. Esparza ranked at number 2. They made her wait for a while to get this shot at the strap before while they had Namajunas, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and Weili Zhang, boundless women, the three women fighting each other over and over again. But the thing about Namajunas, and I did a lot of homework on her for her last fight, so that's why I remember this is all of her rematches, and she's had a lot of them. She's always come out on top of the second fight. She always wins the rematch. She always wins the rematch when whether it doesn't matter what happened in the first fight. She seems to always win, and I think she keeps that trend going here. When you look at the first time they fought, what was it, like 2014 or something like that, versus now, the evolution of both fighters. I mean, yes, they've both evolved, but I think Namajunas has just become so much more than she was from the first fight. I'd see her just being more tactful. Maybe it might be one of the fights that goes the distance that because she's just going to outpoint Esparza. Of course, Esparza tries to wrestle her, then there's a threat of submission, but Esparza might be too strong for that to happen. So I think Namajunas can just just outstrike her and get a decisive win.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I do think that Esparza is slightly underrated by the average fan when you look at her record and you realize that um, after she beat Namajunas in the Ultimate Fighter finale for the title, she did lose to Joanna and Randa Marcos fairly
Mm-hmm.
early on, and then but after that she beat Cavallo, Cynthia Cavallo, Marilyn Morose, and then she had a controversial loss to Claudia Gadelia, which a lot of people thought she was robbed, and then she lost to the Tatiana Suarez, who might turn out to be like one of the biggest what ifs
Mm-hmm.
in the history of MMA. Since then, she's racked off 5 consecutive wins. If the Gadelia decision goes her way and she maybe avoids Suarez, she could be on potentially like a 10 fight win streak, and really or looking to go on a 10 fight win streak and really a strong uh, you know pillar in the division,
Hmm.
which she's become. But I feel like a lot of people kind of wrote her off after a couple losses in a row, and then she started beating everybody again. I don't. I
Plus, they
think
shelved her for to
plus they
she's
shelved her, and
yeah.
I don't think they wanted her to be as successful as she was.
Hmm.
She's not really the most exciting fighter. I think she, her pathway to victory here is obviously wrestling and grinding this fight out,
Yeah.
using her strength and a bit of her maybe physical superiority to kind of try to bully Namajunas around the cage. But I do see Rose figuring something out and striking and doing something to damage her. Maybe it's cut her bad, something. Maybe it's a knee on a takedown attempt.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a flying knee. Maybe it's, I mean, but or a head kick when it's perfectly timed where maybe doesn't knock her
Yeah.
out, but really damages her, cuts her open bad, and totally changes any chance of Esparza being that bully in the ring. So
Yeah.
I will pick Namajunas. It's hard to pick finishes with the
Hmm.
115 pounders, so I'll go by decision. But I, it would be a cool story if Esparza came back, rallied, and won the
Yeah.
title again. But I
And
will go
just
with
to
Namajunas.
yeah, so we're both going with her, but just really quick before we leave this, I mean, I know I said they shelved her. I mean, there's arguments of both that they shelved her, and she also kind of took her stance and said she'd rather wait for this title shot too.
Mhm.
I think that's also been something she said in past interviews. So it should be a fun fight though. I mean, two great fighters in that division. So then moving on. I mean, no, I've been talking enough shit here for the main event.
Wow.
I mean. This fight, I don't see it going the distance. No secret on who I'm picking. My boy, former World Series of Fighting lightweight champion and absolute murderer, Justin Gaethje. The guys picks up fight bonuses even when he loses. I think he went. It's gonna be insane. I feel like there's something. I don't know if maybe Oliveira has become more durable recently, but I feel like his durability has been questioned in the past against other fights. Even Michael Chandler dropped him in the first round of when they fought, and I feel like it's going to be a different. If Gaethje drops in, it's going to be more painful than that one. I don't see. I think this is his time to shine. Long time coming. The guy's always been circling the lightweight title at the UFC. Never got beat for his title. He just left the World Series of Fighting when they changed into the PFL. So no one ever took that belt from him. Technically, he's championship material. I think it happens for him on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's gonna hit Oliveira with something really, really hard early on and hurt him real bad.
Yeah.
And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this was a first round finish.
Mm.
I think Oliveira's become durable in his last couple fights. He's shown a better chin than he had early in his career, and he's developed into um, with a win here, he starts to move into like the all time great list
Yeah.
at that weight class. So it's definitely kind of a legacy fight, really for both these guys, because Gaethje
Yeah.
probably doesn't see a title shot anytime in the near future with another title fight loss. But I do think wins it, completes the bit of a Cinderella story,
Hmm.
despite his record coming from the quote unquote minor leagues,
Hmm.
and losing two out of his first three, although to Poirier and Alvarez, but in two fight of the year candidate fights. Um,
Hmm.
I do think he wins. I think he wins by knockout. I don't mean to be disrespectful to Oliveira, but
No.
I think Gaethje lands the big shot, and it's not one that he can recover
Yeah.
from, like you said.
One thing I want to note here because of I had mentioned odds or whatever. I mean, Gut Justin Gaethje is the underdog here. I'm pretty sure if you look at his history since he signed with the UFC, he's with the exception of when he fought Chandler, he was always the underdog, and he's won more of those fights than he's lost. I think he's the underdog here because, as you said, I mean, the people making odds are probably looking just skimming through his UFC record alone and say, "Oh, okay, Oliveira's a submission guy. Khabib submitted him. He can be submitted. Let's make him the underdog for that reason. And Oliveira the favorite." But you know, I mean, there's a difference between Khabib and Oliveira, and
Yeah, but I don't think there's any disrespect to the champion being
yeah,
favored. I think that just
yeah.
it adds credibility to your organization in
But
reality.
I'm bringing it up because I mean, of course, he could pull a submission out of his if he can
He's the
get him to
all-time
the
leader in
ground.
submissions in UFC
Yeah,
history. So
but so of course he can pull a submission out of his ass. But I mean, to get him to the ground, you have to get close enough to touch him, and that seems to be a very dangerous place to be when you're fighting Justin Gaethje. If you're within, if he can touch you, he can probably hurt you really bad. So, I mean, that's where I'm going to leave that. But I mean, looks like we're both of us got a lot of the same picks here. I mean, UFC 274 again on 10 o'clock main card. Saturday night for Mother's Day weekend should make for a good bit of fun before you take your mom out for the weekend or whatever you're going to do for Mother's Day. Man, I know there was some other stuff going on that we didn't get to, Matt, that you wanted to mention.
yeah, just real quick, following up on last weekend's Bkfc event, um, uh, Lorenzo Hunt knocked out Joe Riggs uh, or second round. I'm sorry, minute in, second round. Really, really lit him up, put him out pretty bad, but Riggs recovered. Everything's all good. But Hunt retains his, again, forgive me, it's his like 185-pound belt. I don't even know. Their weight classes are crazy over there. But this weekend, Bkfc, which is picking up steam, follows up with a Friday night event in Orlando, Florida. So while familiar to the state, the first time they've been in Orlando, that's headlined by Arnold Adams defending the Bkfc heavyweight championship against Dylan Kleckler. Many fans might know Kleckler's name from being the guy that was on the wrong end of, or the, I don't know how you want to say it, in the fight where the fighter passed away. And I actually saw him compete in Alabama, and he put a guy down hard too. He's a big time puncher, very dangerous, and he's fighting Arnold Adams, who's really good technical bare knuckle fighter. Couple wins over Joey Beltran, including getting his title back. That's also followed early Saturday morning. Imagine there'll be an evening replay on Saturday night, but Bkfc Thailand. So not super familiar with a bunch of the fighters on that card, but it's bare knuckle fighting from Thailand, so I'm sure it won't be boring. So if you have the Bkfc app, again, I believe it's at $4.99 a month currently. This would be the third event in a week, so you're getting your money out of it. Other than that, obviously the main show is the UFC, and look forward to that. Look forward to talking to you next week. Fans can check out the show at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast-to-Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Check us out at allaccessmma.com for our video podcast. You can follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMAHawk21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Ed at Carbazol on Twitter, Carbeerzol on Instagram, and Old Head Carb on Twitch. Ed, I think that wraps us up for the week. A lot of violence. Two bare knuckle, Bellator and UFC. Sounds like I know where I'll be.
Yeah, it'll be a busy weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Enjoy your weekend. I mean, if you're a fight fan too, this weekend's for you. See you next week.
Thanks for listening.